Is Meridian really all that bad? Wait, is Boise all that? Is Boise more expensive? Is Meridian more I can't even remember. We're going to dive into all this as we discover Boise's best, Boise's worst, Meridian's best, Meridian's worst. Dive into all the nitty gritty when comparing Boise, Idaho to Meridian, Idaho. So take a look. We're going to dive into Boise versus Meridian. Hi, Brian Hymas here. If this is your first video with me, I am a real estate agent here in the Boise Valley, born and raised here, an appraiser before becoming an agent. We did that for a few years, and I love talking about my hometown, my home state, my city, everything about it. So dive in. We're gonna have a great time talking about Boise versus Meridian here. I am happy to have you here, but first, before we get started, hit that subscribe button because everything I put out is all things Boise. Boise, Meridian, Eagle, Star, Nampa, Caldwell, all that type of stuff, Boise. And we are going to pump you full of so much information about this great place that you will fall in love with it. And when you do fall in love with it, I want you to be like the dozens and dozens of others and give me a compliment by texting or calling or emailing me at the contact information on your screen. And then we can get in touch and get you going on living in the Boise area and your dream come true. So let's go! While Boise is way more populous than Meridian, we're talking almost 250,000 with Boise, only about 130,000 with Meridian. Meridian is definitely the growing place. There's more construction there, less land in Boise. There are some pockets in Boise that are growing, but Meridian is where a lot of the growth is happening. That's, large subdivisions that cover a whole square mile. And I say square mile because why? Because Meridian is built on the grid system. The main streets are a mile apart, right? North to south is a mile, southeast to west is a mile. And so it's a grid system, really easy to get around. Boise's on a grid too, downtown. Theirs is that old time, city block where, about 1/8 of a mile for a block. And you've got, it's a grid like that, but a little bit different. There are streets that curve around like Boise Avenue or Warm Springs and things like that, Park Center, all that type of stuff. So it might be a little bit easier to get around in Meridian, while at the same time, the freeway goes from downtown Boise, goes through Boise and out to Meridian, and it leaves out that northern Meridian part. And so there are some parts of the transportation that we'll dive into a little bit that have its pros and cons. Without saying it, you know that Boise is also the most populous city in the state. The whole Boise Valley, which we call the Treasure Valley, and sometimes I'll even refer to Boise as Boise proper, and sometimes I'll refer to Boise as in the Treasure Valley. It really just depends. Just so pay attention, read my mind. No, but all of us do it here locally. I mean, Boise. So I live in Eagle, but when I go out of town, I tell people I'm from Boise. I don't need to tell them where, exactly where I'm from. I don't tell them my exact street name and address and all that type of stuff. It's one and the same to most people. There are differences between city to city, but when you get into it, Meridian and Boise are actually quite a bit different, and the amount of schools is different. The feel is a little bit different. A lot of newer homes in Meridian versus Boise. Things like that. I grew up in Southwest Boise officially, but I went to church in Meridian. I went to school at Meridian High School. All my schools were Meridian schools. And so when you compare Boise to Meridian, sometimes there is a little bit of a fine line, like just because an address says Boise, it's not exactly Boise. Where I lived, Southwest Boise, it took me about 12 minutes to get to Boise High, and it took me about 15 minutes to get to Meridian High. And that was actually backtracking into Meridian, then hitting the freeway and going to Boise High. And so my point of that is Meridian's about 10 minutes from downtown Boise. If you were flying on the freeway, already on the freeway, you're probably like 8 minutes down from downtown Boise. But if you go from, let's say, North Meridian to downtown Boise, you're looking closer to 20 minutes. If you go from South Meridian to Boise, you're looking about that 12 to 15 minute range. You could even expand that to about 17, 20 minutes if you're South Meridian. And so every point on the map's a little bit different. And that's going to downtown. Now, if I were to go from my house in Southwest Boise, let's say the Eagle and Freeway meet. If we were to go from there to Timberline High School, it's a little bit different because it's a different part of Boise. It's Southeast Boise. That point is closer to about 20 minutes. If you were to go from, let's say, Rocky Mountain High School to Timberline High School, without even checking, I'm going to put that at about 30 minutes on the map. One of the cool things about Boise Boise is our beloved Boise River and the Greenbelt. The Boise River is something else. It's beautiful in the fall. It's green and lush in the summer. Boise's a desert, and so any water we get, it just makes things green. We love that.
We're on the river, and this is me and my dad on this route.
Boise River, baby. On the outside of this is the Greenbelt, and very low-key, small stroll. Yeah, the Greenbelt's just on the outside. The Greenbelt is amazing. It's totally shaded, easy to bike or run. You see it all the time with people at work. You know, they'll take their lunch break and they'll actually go out for a jog, or very few rollerbladers, a lot of bikers, things like that. A really good fun feel, and it's a good community feel. If you compare that to Meridian, Meridian is up on a plateau. There's the Boise bench, and that bench continues all the way over into Meridian. And you'll drop down that bench from Meridian down to Eagle, although that's not the official boundary line, that's more or less the boundary line. But Meridian's up on top of that, and so it's relatively flat from North Meridian to South Meridian. There's not a lot of hills in that area. One of the things that differentiates Meridian from Boise, like I already talked about, is that grid. Because it's so easy to navigate, those are the main thoroughways. You've got the Eagle, Locust Grove, Meridian, Linder, 10 Mile, Black Cat. Those are the main north and souths in Meridian. And the main east and west roads, I'm just gonna go from the bottom up. You're gonna have Amity, Cloverdale, Overland, Franklin, Fairview, Ustick, McMillan, Chinden, and then you're into another city after that. So those are your mile grids, and everyone is on those roads. Eagle's a 55-mile-an-hour road. That's a reminder to all locals, 55, not 45. Push on the gas, please. And when you hit that road, you hit a little bit more traffic. They say Eagle and Fairview is our most busy intersection in the state of Idaho. I would believe it, because those two roads are both like 6-7 lanes wide and they intersect. That's where the Village is. That's where the Albertsons Marketplace is, the Nike store. There's quite a few restaurants there, Big Al's, Chick-fil-A, Texas Roadhouse. But that's a very big intersection. It's where a lot of traffic intersects. So the traffic, when you hit South Meridian to go to North Meridian, you're looking at, could be like a half hour at the optimal worst time. Now, a half hour to some is gonna be like, it's nothing. And I've had one Californian tell me, wow, I'm leaving Orange County to avoid traffic, so we're out. And Eagle Road is that part that you'd want to avoid, while at the same time, I try to avoid it, but it to me is not a huge deal to hit in red light, let's say 4 red lights on the whole trek home. Yeah, there's a lot of cars, but I wouldn't call it bumper to bumper stop and go. It's more like stop and go to the next mile and then stop and wait the intersection kind of thing. The average income in Meridian is closer to $90,000, while in Boise that's around $82,000, $83,000. So you can kind of compare those. Really very, very similar. When you're in that range, we're talking very, very similar average incomes. When we pull information from Realtor.com, which isn't the official source I go to the MLS usually, but just for easy research purposes, $485 is the median price in Meridian and about $450 in Boise. Now, if you get to North End Boise is a whole different animal. The average price is way higher up there in North Boise, the median price as well. If you were to take the most ritzy parts of Meridian, you would find some things that compete, but there's not a huge part. They're just like a little lane might have 5 $2 million homes on it type of thing. But Boise, there's a huge pocket, probably a half square mile by half square mile, where the homes are, I'd say, baller, and they are pretty nice to look at. In fact, the other day, this is a true story, my wife's lived here in Boise for 8 years, it's 9 years, I can't remember, and she had never been to Harrison Boulevard, and this is like $1 million, $2 million homes, and so we drove it together, and she had never seen it. She'd only seen it from my videos, so my wife is a fan of my channel, imagine that, and she was able to see some of those homes firsthand. They're fun, they're a lot of character, about 100 years old, a lot of them gone through renos, and they're super fun. Columns, colonials, you've got moderns, you've got all sorts of things, and they're on these nice little lots with a grasses and trees in the median. Cool, pretty cool stuff. Compare that to Meridian, some of the Old Town charm feel. The older parts of Meridian is the average home price is a little less there. Where Meridian's growth is happening is North Meridian and South Meridian, which I think I've already said. You're seeing a lot of big neighborhoods. Like 10 years ago, Paramount popped up. Now Bainbridge is completed. Now Bridge Tower West is going strong. There's the Oaks North. There is Fairborn. There's Spurwing that's growing. Has some parts. There are south of Meridian. There's Calistoga. There's Sky Mesa. There's Century Farms, which is basically closed up. There's one called Pinnacle. There's just a ton of growth right now. Huge communities going in. These are just a few of them, but a lot of these neighborhoods are large developments that are being developed. A lot of them are developed by a company named Brighton, who also builds homes. Brighton does a lot of developing. There's also homes that meet a different price point where you're not going to get as many high-end finishes like a CBH, and CBH will go in there and just take a plot of land and develop homes. Super nice homes, just they're a little bit more bare bones. When you compare property taxes from Boise to Meridian, they're so similar because they're both in Ada County, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a slight advantage to be in Boise proper over Meridian proper. It's really hard to find, a quarter acre that was assessed at $500,000 compared to a quarter acre that was assessed at $500,000, both built in the same year to make all things the same. But 9 times out of 10, just take this to the bank, Boise proper is a hair cheaper. I'm talking a hair. I mean, on those property taxes, you're getting taxed for everything, right? You have like the same county rate. You might have a different mosquito rate. There's different parts of that tax rate that play into it. Even if you're on a low budget, it is nothing to, in my opinion, and it should not be financial advice, it's just my opinion, it has nothing to make sure that you buy in Boise over Meridian over. It's just a small number. When you compare Boise to Meridian in terms of accessibility to restaurants and shopping centers and grocery stores, you really aren't going to find that much of a difference. If you live like downtown North End Boise, you could probably walk to the ice cream shop, then walk to the city park. You could probably bike to work type of thing. If that's your thing, that's where you want to be. You've got Whole Foods in Boise and you don't have Whole Foods in Meridian. You have Trader Joe's in Boise, you have Trader Joe's in Meridian. You have Fred Meyer's in both, you have Albertsons in both, you have Winco's in both, you have Targets in both, Best Buys in both, you have Home Depot's in both, all that type of stuff. It's very accessible. Now, Whole Foods is downtown Boise, so you're 10 minutes if you're South Meridian to get into Whole Foods anyway. My favorite restaurant is off of Park Center down in Boise called Barbacoa. Best steak in the world. They even have this awesome presentation. They bring it out on a hot plate for you. They pour some, I think it's called cognac sauce. Put it on there, light it on fire. It's awesome. And the taste is amazing. It's super fantastic. You'll find downtown, Boise, you'll find a lot more variety. You've got some Vietnamese, you got some Basque food. You actually have a good restaurant, Epi's in Meridian as well. It's a Basque restaurant, actually really famous. So that's a good one too. You'll have nice steakhouses in both cities though. You'll have nice restaurants, Italian. You'll have Ma's and Pop shops. You'll have chains in both cities. Really, that is not really that much of a difference maker in terms of which city has the most or the best. More of probably going to be picking your location maybe off of something different. While at the same time, Meridian has Eagle and Fairview, which is where the Village is, which is where R&R Barbecue. You've got Texas Roadhouse, Goodwood, Jakers, Applebee's. You've got quite a few different, fast food restaurants. You've got Carl's. You've got the taco place. What's that place called? I'll think of it in a second. Baja Fresh. Noodles, Blaze, Habit Burger, you got all those types of things there at Eagle and Fairview. So that's definitely appealing as well. Kind of depends on your flavor. If you like the downtown walkability, if you like the outdoor shopping and you like that more of the strip mall type of thing, I guess that'd be more Meridian. Now when it comes to healthcare, Boise has St. Al's and St. Luke's. St. Luke's is the larger employer of the two. Meridian has a large St. Luke's as well. St. Al's and St. Luke's both have little tiny hospitals around the areas, but those are the larger hospitals. St. Al's has one there at Curtis and the freeway. St. Luke's is downtown Boise and Eagle and the freeway in Meridian. Now when it comes to schools, I take a little bit of an issue with greatschools.org. It's a rating system that I've heard how the ratings are put together. I'm not sure I love how they're put together, but they are there as a metric. And if you like it or you don't like it, guess what? The buyer of your house in the future might appreciate it more than you. And so the area that gets a ton of love, and you can look on the areas of your screen while I'm talking, the area that gets a ton of love in terms of resale is North Meridian. From the Discovery Elementary to Sawtooth and Heritage Middle to Rocky Mountain High School, those ratings are all good, stepping right on up on their website. You'll find great schools in South Meridian. You'll find great schools in Central Meridian. Meridian is in the West Ada School District, formerly known as Meridian School District. And so that includes Mountain View, Centennial, Meridian, Rocky Mountain, and Eagle. If you compare that to Boise, Boise has Bora High, Capitol High, Timberline High, and Boise High. You can tell from the number of high schools where some of that growth is going right now in the Boise Valley. Even though Boise is the most populous city, that's how the school districts shake out. But one thing you have to keep in mind with the school systems here is that, let's say you lived at a house right here in this house, all right? We live about 4 miles from Star Elementary, and we put our kids there, but we applied to the charter school that's in our neighborhood. And while we went to school there, our name popped up for the lottery. We got our kids into school there. We love both schools. We wanted one because it was closer. And so if you want to choose a different school based on proximity, you think it's better, you like a teacher, you have better play toys, I have no idea. And you can always apply to that charter school. So that's one of the great things about Boise is you don't have to only choose the school where you're going to be aligned with in terms of boundaries. You can get there with an application process and be chosen through the lottery. Now with the growing valley, that is a little harder than it used to be, while at the same time it is obtainable. But if you were to take everything and ask me, born and raised here, I spent probably a total of 5 years out of the valley total my whole life. Where would I live? I would easily tell you, and this might surprise you, Meridian. I was born and raised essentially in Meridian. Boise address, and so I'm super biased, but because I love Meridian. I love how close it is to downtown with the freeway if you're in South Meridian. North Meridian having its own little community almost. I like that if you want to go downtown and walk the town, you can. I like that it has a ton of restaurants, a ton of growth, a ton of neighborhoods, a lot of options to choose from. If you're going to be in Boise, I will say there's one area of Boise that I would gravitate towards, and not including the areas of Boise that are basically Meridian but with a Boise address. I love Southeast Boise. Southwest has a lot of boutiques. It's on the river. It's beautiful. It's close to Lucky Peak for boating. It's 10 minutes from downtown off of Warm Springs and Park Center. It's really a great place. I am less familiar with Southeast Boise and way more familiar with Eagle, Meridian, North Meridian, South Meridian, Star area, but those are great places. There's a great revitalization that's happening on the Boise Bench area with all the older homes getting remodeled and getting the values up because of its proximity to downtown Boise. I've had customers here that say they want to be in the Bench, or they want to be in North Boise or Northwest Boise because they can be close to downtown. They can bike to Camelback. They can bike in the foothills. There's a lot of good things about both. However, for me and my lifestyle, I love Meridian. I would choose Meridian probably 11 times out of 10. I love Meridian. I want to know what you prefer. Would you prefer Boise or Meridian? Comment below in the comments. Make those comments. And also, you should subscribe to this channel. You're on this channel trying to learn about Boise. Click subscribe and then a little bell's gonna pop up. Click that bell because that reminds you or pings you every time I put out new content. And I know you want more content because you've made it this far on this video, so you should be clicking subscribe and click that bell. Obviously, you don't hate me enough to have jumped off ship by now, so subscribe, click the bell, and every time a new video comes out, which is about weekly, you'll get pinged, and so you can be first to know what is going on in Boise, Idaho. Also, I've said it once, there is no bigger compliment to me than a text, an email, or a phone call telling me that you're coming to Boise and that you would love my help as a realtor to help you get here. Dozens of people just like you are doing it, and I appreciate it. I'm probably getting up to a dozen of these calls, texts, or emails every week, and I would love to add a baker's dozen to that. And I'm happy to help you on your decision of making a move up here to Boise.